Inflation has a lot of components that go into it. It's a macroeconomic indicator that isn't just driven by tariffs, and in fact, often it's something else going on: the labor market, supply, demand. In the past, we haven't seen tariffs drive inflation. Even in the first Trump administration, when tariffs went up quite a bit on China, and that felt like a lot at the time. Of course, now what we're talking about is much bigger. That action did not cause inflation or other tariffs that have been put in place in the Trump administration and other administrations. We just don't usually think of tariffs as being an inflation driver. This is a big experiment of a much larger trade action than we've ever seen. So in part, we'll have to wait and see and how it interacts with other parts of the economy. But I think his comment is valid in the sense of looking back at how we usually think about tariffs and their magnitude and their impact on the economy. It is a bit complicated as to how they get baked into prices and what their effect is.
Well, I'd like to talk about one specific magnitude of tariffs on one of our trading partners, Greta, and that is China, because in addition to the 20% tariffs that have already been put into place to combat what the White House argues is the trade of fentanyl, and 34% in terms of the reciprocal tariff rate it was already intending to impose at midnight tonight. The White House has confirmed today it is going ahead with that additional 50% tariff on Chinese goods, bringing the effective rate to 104%. With a level that high, Greta, what is realistically going to happen with the trade relationship between the U.S. and China and the flow of goods?
Well, like all of these tariffs, I think the big question is, what is the end game? What is the administration attempting to achieve with these tariffs? And it may be different, and likely is a bit different with respect to China than with respect to other trading partners. But I think a question here is this about decoupling from China? Is it to increase leverage to have a negotiation, which it seems like at times the president may have alluded to? Those are very different outcomes. And China is going to have its own, as every trading partner has, its own prerogatives and its own domestic economic and political imperatives that it has to answer to. And so, I think at this point, we don't fully understand what the administration's strategy, what the president is hoping to achieve with this further increase in tariff. But I think it's certainly going to be a consequential action and potential discussions with China going forward.
Does the U.S. Trade Representative's office model this, maybe in conjunction now with the Secretary of Commerce, to kind of play this out, to see what it is we're actually asking for? When you hear Howard Lutnick talk about iPhones being assembled in the U.S. once again, we heard from Dan Ives on that. The analyst said that would mean basically a $3,000 iPhone. Where becomes the line of diminishing returns when decisions like this are being made?
I mean, it's a great question. And again, we don't know what's in the mind of the administration and the president and what they're hoping to achieve with these tariffs and negotiations. Just a few minutes ago, the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, said that the president was directing members of the trade team to come up with tailor-made deals for trading partners that are unique with respect to the trade relationship, imports, exports, the barriers in each of those markets. So that indicates that it may be a different scenario for each and every one of this over 100 trading partners. But again, we don't have a clear sense of what the ask is and what the end state is. Where do they want to be in 9 months, in 18 months? What do they want the tariffs to look like? And what do they want the results of any negotiations to be?
And finally, Greta, in our final moments with you, given that you were general counsel at the USTR, do you have any hesitations around the actual legal mechanisms with which President Trump is acting to enact these tariffs? Because there are now movements in Congress toward kind of wresting back congressional authority through a resolution to exert that Article I privilege to actually be the ones in charge of tariff policy. But how would all of this stand up in court?
Well, Congress certainly has the ability to take action to counteract or address the trade policies that have been enacted by the president so far. And yes, there are also rumors or in even one case that's been filed to challenge some of the tariffs that have been put in place since President Trump came into office. But I think there's a lot of question marks there. He is stretching these authorities in new ways and using them in a magnitude that hasn't been attempted before. But and so we just don't know what the courts are going to do with that and whether any of these challenges will be successful. But I would just say that even if the courts are successful, or even if litigants are successful in challenging some of the actions that have been taken place so far, the president has other tools and authorities that can be used to put tariffs in place. So, he is committed to this policy, it would seem. He thinks that tariffs are effective in addressing these issues, and he'll find a way to do it.